Okay, the market's almost back in the green. Look at the Nifty. It's just got about 5-point cut at 18,251. So this is most definitely a pullback and a good one at that. Across the board, there is more green. Market breadth, I think, is improved a little bit more over the last 10-15 minutes or so. Let's get you some information on the pharma space. This is an exclusive, and this is on the likely large deal between Biocon and Mylan. Nisha, who broke that story earlier on the deal, gets us more exclusive details on the contours of how this could play out. Nisha, over to you.
That's right. It's a large transaction brewing in the pharmaceutical space. And also remember that we were the first to break the story on Biocon as well as Mylan, talking about the merger of their biosimilars business. And now we have more details on the timeline as well as the deal contours. We do gather the deal is in the final stages and it could be announced soon. And as part of the deal, they're creating a merged entity of Biocon Biologics as well as Mylan's biosimilars business into a behemoth in biosimilars business worth close to about $10 billion. Now, deal contour, as part of that, it will be a part cash, part equity deal is what we gather. And Biocon would be looking at a majority controlling stake in the merged entity and therefore would also be buying additional stake from Mylan to up its stake in the merged entity, and that could be worth $1.5 billion. Very interesting here that Serum Institute is in talks to buy additional stake in Biocon Biologics and provide that $500 million to Biocon to pay Mylan as part of the transaction. We gather, and Serum Institute, remember, at $4.9 billion has already bought 15% stake in Biocon Biologics earlier as part of Vaccine Alliance. Now, looking at the structure, remaining $1 billion could be tied up on the books of Biocon Biologics, and the deal doesn't end at merger. We do gather that there will be an agreement also to list the company in the near future so that Mylan can get more cash out of this particular business and this transaction. So it's a large company being created and also huge value unlocking for both Mylan as well as Biocon.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot for that, Nisha. Well, Prakash, how do you approach the stock? You know, you've heard what Nisha had to say. It's down close to 20% in the last money. Exactly, I think 15th of January, it was at around 470. Now, in fact, it's at around the 350 odd. How do you approach the stock?
So, Nigel, you know, this is a fairly complex transaction, and if you see, even with the contours of the transaction that Nisha just spelled out being available, you really don't know in terms of a couple of things. Like, one is the timeline, the other is at certain points what kind of effective pricing will probably have to be calculated for those capital infusion that's likely to come in, and these are significant capital restructuring moves. So I would wait before taking a decision on the basis of this transaction. But overall, the space definitely seems promising given the way biologics is getting a huge acceptance, the accelerated pace at which things are changing for that. I think it's promising enough. Of course, the call was much more constructive and positive on Syngene because that was the engine for all these growth vectors. But if somebody were to be too late for that, you could probably look at Biocon, but don't expect too much of moves, too much of positive or very sharp up moves just because something is brewing in this space. In fact, I wish Shriram was listed and there could be some upside that you could capture there. But from a Biocon's perspective, I would wait for the details of these transactions to be spelled out in much more detail before taking a plunge.
Prakash, we'll let you go on that note today. Thanks a lot for joining us and have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Pashupati Advani is now joining